This is a combination of the 3 videos I did earlier this week on the new Unearthed Arcana classes. Hope you enjoy. Alright, so just a quick video going over the newly released Unearthed Arcana, released, what is the date today? October 17th, 2019. So 3 new archetypes are released in this edition, and just as a note, this is considered a playtest, so nothing that's, polished or officially approved. But they do release 3 new archetypes, one for the Fighter, Ranger, and the Rogue. I'll put a link in the description. This is the Dungeons & Dragons Wizard of the Coast main page, and it is, of course, free. But anyways, let's fire it up. Let's take a look here. Like I was saying, just going to be focusing on the Fighter. Okay, so let's zoom in a bit. This is just right on the first page. We're going to be looking at the Rune Knight. Now, as a fighter, when you hit 3rd level, you get to pick your new martial archetype. And there's, I think, what do they give you? 2 or 3 in the base, and then Xanathar's Guide has another few. I think they throw at you. So, anyways, now we're looking at the Rune Knight. Now, the Rune Knight is definitely based off of kind of giant lore, kind of backgrounds that they're recommending is, if you have first-hand knowledge of these giants, these rune cutters that they're known as, I guess that are doing the official writing of the language for the giants and creating these magic runes. So they kind of just recommend having a background where maybe your character was working with a sage and has secondhand knowledge of this, or doing his own research through traveling locations, or, like I say, firsthand knowledge being raised by giants. How cool is that? So right away, being at 3rd level, you get bonus to proficiencies. That includes smith's tools, as well as learning how to speak, read, and write fully in giant. Now the big main feature before we get to it is the rune magic, but before we go to that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the other 3rd level, or the ability you get right away, which is called Giant Might. Let's zoom in a little bit. Yeah, now, so Giant Might, you get to use this as a bonus action, as it says twice per day, basically before you have a long rest there. It lasts for a minute, and so what it does, it actually increases your size. So if you're not already a large, it bumps you up to a large size, and you then do have advantage on strength and checks, as well as strength saving throws. Now, the nice thing about it is that it also does add bonus damage during that minute duration. You get to add a 1d6 for your bonus damage, so not too bad. Now, the main feature of this class are the rune magic. Now, this is kind of an interesting addition for a fighter, because now you're looking at spell save DC. So now all of a sudden, intelligence is an interesting ability or stat to have for this class, as it's going to help out with your spell save DCs, anything that gets cast at a creature. So with runes, you basically start off by being able to select 2 runes out of everything that's listed here. I think, what is there? There's about 6 or 7 of them. Now, runes you enchant onto items, strictly weapons, armor, and shields, as it says. When you're at 3rd level, you get to start with applying 2 runes. Only one item can carry 1 rune at a time. Let's take it. Your runes remain on the object until you have finished a long rest. So basically, you're casting them first thing in the morning, getting 2 different items that you get to start with, 2 different runes. And then each rune basically has a passive ability, and as well as an activated ability, or invoking the rune as it's described. So let's take a look at some of the runes that you get to start with. So just to reiterate, so starting at 3rd level, you get to enchant 2 different items, and you get to know 2 different runes being that. So let's take a look at the runes. The first one is the Hill Rune. I'm not even going to try and pronounce this. Here's a little note on the spell save DC. It's basically 8 plus your proficiency and your intelligence modifier. But starting with the Hill Rune, now the passive with the Hill Rune is that you gain advantage and this is while whatever items you're using is being carried or equipped. You get these advantages or bonuses. So starting with the Hill Rune, you have advantage on saving throws against being poisoned, as well as resistance against poison damage. So that is just the passive side of the rune. Now, when you actually invoke the ability or invoke the rune, as a bonus action for the Hill Rune, you gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage for a minute. So not too shabby at all. So once you invoked it, you can't do it again until you finish a short or long rest. Okay, now looking at the Fire Rune. Runes magic channels, blah, blah, blah. Based on the fire kind of smith giants there. Basically get a proficiency to, or double proficiency if you're already proficient with that, with a certain tool. So that's not bad if you're doing lots of crafting. Now when you invoke this rune, this is kind of interesting. You summon fiery shackles. The target must succeed a strength saving throw or be restrained for 1 minute. And off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure when you're restrained, you obviously can't move. You lose your movement. And I believe you do. Creatures have advantage on attack against you, and you have disadvantage if you're restrained. So not a bad thing to be able to throw on an enemy. While this creature is restrained in the shackles, the target takes 2d6 fire damage at the start of each of their turns, so not bad. And I believe they do strength saving throws at the beginning of each turn. The target can repeat the saving throw at the end of each turn, banishing shackles on a success. Okay, very cool, so not bad. Next, looking at the Frost Rune. Now this one, the passive, you basically get a bonus advantage on... better make sure, yeah, advantage on your wisdom for animal handling and intimidation checks. On invoking the rune, you get to bump your strength score up by 2 for 10 minutes, which is actually pretty dope. So man, if you're starting at that base 18 and you bump it up to that 20, that's not too bad. Does note that you cannot exceed past 30. Okay, so moving along, look at the Cloud Rune. Again, the passive is just, it gives you an advantage on sleight of hand and deception checks. However, the invocation, you get to use a reaction to use the invocation, and you basically get to almost deflect an attack. Let's read it here. Invoke the rune and cause that attack to target a different creature. So if you're within 30 feet and you see a creature that is being attacked, say an ally, you can or yourself, you can basically deflect that attack to attack someone other than the attacker itself. So not a bad utility to be able to deflect that kind of damage if something bad's coming in. Looking at the Stone Rune. Now this gives you advantage on insight checks, and then as well as grants dark vision on yourself. So the actual invoking of the Stone Rune. Let's see, I can't remember here. Reaction to invoke the Stone Rune and force the creature to make a wisdom saving. Okay, so now we're actually starting to make creatures do saving throws here. So this is where we're actually applying our spell DC. Unless the save succeed, the creature is charmed, so you're charmed for 1 minute, but not only that, the charmed creature also has speed of 0 and is incapacitated. So incapacitated, ooh, that I might actually have to look up real quick here, because I think you get automatic critical hits. Yeah, being incapacitated is not geared. Incapacitated creature can't take actions or reactions. Oh, that's it. Oh, okay, not as bad as I thought, so scrap that. An incapacitated creature can't take actions or reactions. So they're basically frozen kind of in a daze. The effects can end if the charmed creature takes any damage. As usual, someone else tries to shake them out of it. So nice little invocation there. Next one is the Storm. Using the rune, you get to... advantage on intelligence checks, right? And you can't be surprised as long as you're not incapacitated. So not a bad passive to have on you, not being able to be surprised. So that's pretty good. In addition, you can invoke the rune as a bonus action to enter a prophetic state for 1 minute until you're incapacitated. Till the state ends, when you and another creature can see within 60 feet of you makes an attack roll, a saving throw, and ability check, you can use your reaction to cause the roll to have advantage or disadvantage. So not too bad. Whether it's an ally or an enemy, you can cause that attack to have an advantage or disadvantage. So nice utility there. Okay, so that basically covers the runes that are available. And like I was saying, when you create your character at 3rd level, you get to pick from 2 of them and have a maximum of 2 that you get to enchant on your weapons and armor. As you progress into the level, so say if you get into the 7th level, you get the defensive rune. In addition, you learn 1 new rune of your choice from the rune magic feature. So now you have a total of 3, as it says there. Let's look at defensive rune itself. You learn to invoke your rune magic to protect your allies. Whenever another creature you can see within 60 feet of you is hit by an attack roll, you can use your reaction to grant a bonus to the creature's AC against that attack. The bonus equals 1 plus your intelligence modifier. So again, kind of an interesting class to be able to have that intelligence modifier help out being a warrior. Okay, going down. Now once you get to 10th level, you actually get an additional rune that you get to learn, as well as giving you a total of 4. And anytime you do level up, you are allowed to trade out a rune for rune if you want to switch one out. But when you get to 7th, you get a total of 3. 10th, we got a total of 4. And let's go down on the next page. 15th, we get an additional one, total of 5. So looking at the final ability though, the Blessing of the All-Father, you learn how to share your rune magic with your allies. When you use your Giant Might feature, you can choose one willing creature you can see within 60 feet. chosen creature also gains the benefit of giant might feature. So pretty cool. So interesting class overall. I think it's a good touch to have archetype for the fighters that uses intelligence. That's a very different type of build, so you might have to, you know, step away from buffing up like your dexterity, charisma, wisdom in order to you know, have that higher intelligence ability score. So very cool. I think it's a neat idea. I like how you have different runes that apply not only a passive ability, but you get to invoke them and kind of have like an instant action. It's a neat class. I want to make one and try one for myself. That's for sure. Very cool. All right, so just a short video checking out one of the new classes that came out in the most recent release of Unearthed Arcana. I believe that came out on the 17th of October 2019. I will have a link in the description to where you can get it. It's always for free on Wizard of the Coast D&D's main website. Pretty easy to get at. But anyways, let's fire into it. So I know I've been doing some D&D content, and I've been posting it on my Simple Combo channel. Going to be trying to keep it mostly to a separate channel that I have for the D&D content, and I will be keeping the video game stuff as well as the live streaming going on Simple Combo. So kind of bouncing some videos around and just kind of testing the field out for some of the D&D stuff, but been trying to keep the content going out on it and wanting to get back into more video game indie streaming, all that stuff. Anyways, enough about that. Let's get into this. Looking at the Ranger archetype. So this Ranger archetype is known as the Swarmkeeper. I think the kind of lore or, you know, the cosmetics of it is that, you know, you're a Ranger, but you're using, wouldn't you know it, swarms. So swarms of insects, birds, slippery squids. Oh my God, stuff like that. So I think that's a neat idea. It kind of reminds me of what's going on in Critical Role with Caduceus Clay. How he's always using like swarm of beetles, even though he is a cleric of the grave. So very different class, but I think the whole swarm idea really transfers well. So let's zoom in a little bit and we'll take a closer look at it. So not a whole lot that's going on with this character in terms of like, you know, new mechanics, mostly just different abilities and spells that you're picking up with. But let's take a look. So like I say, you know, some Swarmkeepers are outcasts or hermits, keeping themselves to their attendant's swarm rather than dealing with the discomfort of others. Oh man, how I can relate. I would much rather just hang out with my hamsters than people. So let's get on to the third level feature that you get. You start off with learning Mage Hand, which is never bad to have as a cantrip. And what I thought was a neat little aesthetic touch was, instead of, you know, the traditional arcane translucent hand that you got, it's supposed the image of it is supposed to be more of a swarming of whatever nature spirit you're using there. So I think that's a neat little flourish. So you also learn additional spells, it does say, and that's shown up in the new table that's given. So third level you get the Fairy Fire, 5th you get Web, 9th Gaseous Form, 13th Giant Insect, and then 17th Insect Plague. So not bad spells to have access as a Ranger. I think that's a neat touch. It just, again, it's a very not cinematic, but it's a very oh God, how do you put it? It's just got a lot of color to this character, so a lot of cosmetic features, which I think is really nice. So let's take a look at the first third level ability that you do get, called Gathered Swarm. So you magically attract a swarm of phase spirits, and basically, I have to remind myself here, so as a bonus action, so these things just float all around you, get on your weapon and whatnot, but as a bonus action, you can activate it for 1 minute, and when this happens, anytime you strike a character, anytime you strike, once during each of your turns, when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you can deal an extra 1d6 force damage to that creature, and that actually can use that to push or pull them away by 5 feet, which is pretty dope. That's never a bad option to have when you're in the middle of a fight, being able to push or pull characters in a direction. Even if it is just by 5 feet, that 5 feet could be enough to like push them off a cliff, bring them towards one of your tanks or something, who knows. And then does bump up to a 2d6 at level 11. Let's move down to a little bit more of a Withering Tide. So we didn't get anything till we get up to level 7 here. So this is actually probably one of my most interesting, or what I'm most interested if I was to ever play a Swarmkeeper, is you get an increased walking speed of 10 feet, that's fine, but you also get you can use the disengage action as a bonus action, so that's never a bad thing, especially playing as a Ranger. Now, what I think is really cool is you gain climb speed equal to your walking speed, but you can climb difficult surfaces, including upside down on ceilings without making an ability check. That is pretty goddamn dope. I think that's really cool. And not only that, you also get a flying speed of 10 feet and can hover. That's pretty awesome, man. I think that's that's probably to me the most little interesting thing of this class. I really think that's a neat ability. I mean, flying, you obviously have to be careful. You don't want to get KO'd while you're flying, because even if you are up at 10 feet, you are going to take damage and you're going to lose a death save when falling and taking that hit. So as always, got to be careful with flying. But man, I think that's Withering Tide. I think that's an awesome addition. So that's something I'm very excited about. Scuttling Eyes, I have to remind myself. As an action, you can magically form one of the spirits of your swarm into the shape of a tiny beast. Oh, right. Okay. He transforms lasts for an hour, at which point the spirit disappears. For the duration, spirit has a speed of 40 feet, which it can use to walk, fly, climb. Ooh, fly as well? Holy crap. The spirit has, well, I guess because, I mean, you could just form it into the, it has to be tiny. So, I mean, you could form into the, just like a little bird or anything. So that's fine. That makes sense. Spirit has your senses and your telepathy relays, and telepathically relays what it sees and hears to you. During your turn, you can speak through the spirit. Oh, that's kind of cool. Telepathically command it, move, and you can hide using your bonus dexterity stealth checks. The spirit has an AC of 18, so not a bad AC on that. If it takes damage, you must succeed a wisdom save, yada yada yada. As an action, you can dismiss it. So, you know, a real nice scouting tool for the most part. You can fire this in to scout ahead. I mean, you can make it something that can fly too, so you're not bound to say like a familiar, you know, which you have to kind of, I think you have to do a ritual to change that over. So again, Scuttling Eyes, so not a bad little scout ability there. And that is done at level 11. So now we're looking at Storm of Minions. I believe this is the last ability that you learn as a Swarmkeeper, level 15 that you get it. Yeah, then it moves on to the Rogue archetype. So let's take a look. Storm of Minions. Your swarm can expel a seething storm of spirits that drains life from others. Oh, right, yeah, this is a bit of a healing kind of idea. Excuse me, just drinking some coffee. As an action, when you create a magical sphere, and basically you have 120 feet range that you can cast this, and it's a 10-foot radius that lasts for a minute. The sphere is difficult terrain for creatures other than you. A creature other than you that starts in this turn sphere must make a Constitution save, or otherwise they're taking 2d8 necrotic damage and are blinded, which is actually pretty dope. The blind is always very helpful. On a successful save, it just takes half a zen, doesn't get blinded. At the start of turn, if any number of small or large creatures took necrotic damage from the swarm, you could regain 1d8 hit points. So not bad. So man, if you got if there's like a little whack of goblins, or you know, something where it has like a lot of creatures, and then you cast that, man, you could be healing pretty fucking chunky there. So that's pretty cool. So you can let me make sure I'm reading that. At the start of your turn, if any number of small any number. Oh, I misread that. At the start of your turn, if any number of small or large creatures took necrotic hit points. So I don't think they're counting that, you know, say if there was 5 goblins, now you get to roll like 5d8 for healing, which would be pretty, I mean, level 15, why not? Maybe I'm reading that right. I'll have to check through that later. I do got to keep this video short because I am on my lunch break. When you activate this feature, you can choose any number of creatures that you can speed to not be affected by it. So you don't have to worry about your party if they're in the flash of this. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. So pretty cool. So like I say, I mean, Storm Minions is really cool. I'll have to spend some time looking up if it's start of your turn, if any number of small or large creatures. I think it's you're just going to get the one, unfortunately. But either way, still not bad. Like I say, Withering Tide, I think is really cool for the mobility options. I think that's really neat to have as a ranger, and that's what I'd be mostly interested in, as well as the new Swarmkeeper spells that you are going to get access to as a ranger, because I think a lot of these spells are normally kept to probably druids and wizards. Some of these might cross over. I couldn't say off the top of my head. But anyways, so just a quick video looking at the Swarmkeeper, the second archetype that was released in the new Unearthed Arcana. Next time I'm going to be going over the new roguish archetype. What is that called? The Revived? Interesting. I haven't looked at it at all. But very cool. Big fan of the Ruin Knight. I think the Swarmkeeper is an interesting class that has a lot of flair. And like I say, those mobility options you're going to get access to at level 7 is super dope. So really neat looking character. Okay, so last video I wanted to do on the recently published Unearthed Arcana, giving us 3 new archetypes to check out. Now these are in a playtest form, so like I say, there's lots of things that are being balanced out, but let's fire right into it. Last one we're going to be looking at is the new archetype that was released for the Rogue, and that is the Revived. Now, the Revived, what the name is meaning behind is that the kind of lore that you're supposed to be focusing around a little bit is that you're obviously a rogue, no surprise there. But the big thing is that you've come back from the dead. However this may be, let's read what we've got here. You've been dead before, yet somehow you are alive again. The life isn't your first, it might not even be your second. Your past life or lives are unclear to you, but you know that you have passed through the gates of death. So very cool. I think this is an interesting class that can give you like a strong relationship to a deity or something like that. So kind of a rogue class that, you know, again, can benefit off of intelligence-based stats, and also role-playing, you know, with a deity of some kind. But anyways, so they leave you lots of options for that. What's the last bit I got highlighted? Whatever force brought you back, you know the truth about yourself, that you are one of death's representatives among the living. Sounds pretty badass. Okay, so let's get started with the third level abilities that you get when you take this archetype. Tokens of the past. When you finish a long rest, you gain 1 skill or tool proficiency of your choice. So that was one thing that definitely came to mind when reading this character, is that it's very kind of manipulative. Not manipulative. How do you say it? It's definitely a lot of support role in it. Maybe not role. Man, I'm kind of getting twisted up on this. I think it's good if you want to alternate things. If you're going through a certain dungeon or you're a certain area and you want to actually alternate, you know, your proficiencies, even saving throws, as we'll find in a little bit here, it gives you opportunity to do that. So I think that's an interesting twist on the rogue class. So, like I said, when you finish a long rest, you can change a skill or tool proficiency of your choice. That is pretty awesome. Or sorry, you gain 1 of your choice. So lots of change out there. Revived nature. Your newfound connection to death gives you the following benefits. So this is pretty cool. You get advantage on saving throws against disease and being poisoned. But what's even more, resistance to poison damage, of course. But what's even more interesting is you don't need to eat, drink, or breathe, and you don't need sleep. Now, you still have to take long rest to replenish abilities, obviously. But when you're in this state, you actually get to hear as normal. So how that applies to, you know, say surprise rounds, that's really going to help out. That's for sure. So an interesting little tidbit on that. Okay, moving ahead now. Next third level is Bolts from the Grave. Now again, another interesting one. You basically get to use your cunning action, which is always a bonus action as a rogue, but you get to use it and instead of, because I think cunning action usually lets you do disengage and I think dash as well. Yeah, I think it's disengage and dash usually. But this will actually let you use your cunning action and make a ranged spell attack, as you can see, within 30 feet. So the only way you can do this though is if you haven't used your sneak attack already. So a little bit of a limitation on that. So what you do is you're actually adding your dex modifier to the attack and damage rolls, and you're actually doing a ranged spell attack DC. Creature hit by the attack takes necrotic damage equal to your sneak attack. So you're using your sneak attack and then plus your dexterity modifier. So not a bad use of using the cunning action if you haven't used the sneak attack for that turn. Okay, as we're moving along, Connect with the Dead. Which one was this one? Oh yeah, Connect with the Dead. So basically you're casting a Speak with the Dead spell, which is always dope as hell. But when it ends, you gain the random benefit from the Revive capabilities table. So let's take a look at the table. So like I say, you're basically casting Speak with the Dead, which is always a useful spell to have, but you're kind of using it in the form of ability. And then you basically get to roll for, you gain 1 random benefit. Right, random. So you can learn how to speak, read, and write 1 language of your choice. Not bad at all. You gain 1 skill or tool proficiency of your choice. So another good, useful thing. You gain proficiency 1 saving throw of your choice. So again, super handy if you're in a certain area and you know that you really wish that you had a saving throw of some kind, or a proficiency bonus applied to that. Okay, moving along. Audience with the Death. Which one was this one? When at death's door. Oh, right. You can converse with the powers of the death. You have advantage on death saving throws. How that is pretty. Now, there probably is something out there, but nothing that I'm aware of where you can actually get advantage on death saving throws. This is the first time I've ever come across anything that lets you do that. But if I'm wrong on that, please correct me. Whenever you make a death saving throw, your spirit can ask an entity basically a yes or no question, which is very cool. Or a question that'll basically be replied in a yes or no or unknown. So very cool little ability with that. And like I say, the whole advantage on death saving throws, man, not bad. You ain't gonna kill this mofo. But like I say, I could be wrong if there is something else that gives you that. But I nothing that I can think of off the top of my head. Another thing here, when you are at 0 hit points and are healed or stabilized, you can change any personality trait, ideal, bond, or flaw. So something with a little bit of color on that. It's not bad. Okay, last one for the level 17, Ethereal Jaunt. Like a ghost, you have the ability to slip in and out of the ethereal plane. You can now use your cunning action, so nice, another use of the cunning action, to teleport to an unoccupied space within 30 feet. And again, cunning actions are always a bonus action. You don't need to see that space to teleport it, but your teleportation fails, wasting bonus action if you attempt to teleport through magical force, such as a medium or larger, such as a wall of force. So like I say, the big thing is that you're basically teleporting within 30 feet, but like it says, you know, you don't want to take a bunch of force damage just from, you know, trying to teleport somewhere that you're not supposed to, or that you might not be aware of, so you do have to be careful of that. But just another nice use of using cunning action. Was there anything else with it if you're appearing in space on it? Yada yada yada. You take that. Yeah, that's obvious. So, you know, not a ton of crazy mechanics going on with the revived rogue class, but like I say, I think there's some really interesting abilities. The whole idea of not needing to eat, drink, or breathe, or sleep, really good for any D&D game where there's a lot of micromanagement involved, where you're keeping track of that kind of stuff. Huge benefit to that. What else was something else that I really like? I mean, the bolt thing is cool. A bolt from the grave, again, making use of the cunning action. I think that's something that's really neat about this subclass or archetype, is that it's making a lot of use of your cunning action, which is really nice. Connected with the dead, really good to have the speak with the dead spell. Audience with the bell. So, you know, I think it's cool. I think it's another class that's kind of like the Swarmkeeper. Lots of flavor and color for if you want to really role play and have some variety with this type of character. But there are some beneficial mechanics in there. Like, see, I think Revived Nature's is cool. Tokens of the Past is really cool. So a lot of opportunity to change how you play your character as you go. So I think that's what's going to be the big appeal to people that really want to be able to switch things up on the fly between rests. So anyways, that's going to do it for looking at the final archetype for the latest Unearthed Arcana, which was released yesterday on the 17th, October 2019. Man, a big fan of the Ruin Knight. I think that's some awesome, interesting options in there. The Swarmkeeper was cool. I mean, the Revived is cool. So very, very interesting. I'm hoping to be able to put together one of these characters and actually give it a play test myself. Anyways, I hope these videos have been helpful. I do post this on my Simple Dungeons & Dragons as well as my Simple Combo channel. So if you want to check either one of those out, always happy to have you. Subscribe, like, all that usual junk. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.